Hi, and welcome to On the Edge with Deneen Dias. Today, I get the privilege of talking with Gale Crosley at Crosley and Company. Gale, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, please?
Will do. I started my career as a CPA and auditor in a large national firm, and I was actually in two national firms before I went on and did a complete career change and went into technology, into the growth disciplines, sales, marketing, and new product development or product management. And I started this particular practice after many years in technology to help CPA firms grow. And when I help them grow, I transform them into high growth environments. And one of the things I do is work with the CAS practices to drive growth and profitable growth, if you will, with the CAS practices. So this has a special place in my heart.
Well, I've learned a lot from you, Gale, and I've known you for years, but I will say since I joined Botkeeper, I've kind of dug in a bit more with you and learned more about how you help firms strategize around growth. And so I'm really looking forward to the growth, and technology discussion today. I think it's good to start though on kind of looking at 2020 and talking about it was a challenging year. It's a challenging year for all of us, certainly a challenging year for firms. But I like hearing your perspective on sort of what the focus was for firms last year, and then what you're seeing the focus for firms this year. So if you can share your insights there, that's a great place to start.
Great, will do, Deneen. Yes, it's interesting that last year was very focused on infrastructure, and that is the use of technology, particularly to get people, connected to clients and get work done. And so it was very much a back room, I'll call it, the back room versus the front room. The back room is infrastructure, what we're doing to prepare to and to deliver business. And then the front room would be the client facing, the driving growth, and so forth. And that was really put on a back burner because as people were, needing to be deployed remotely and get their arms around how to do work that way, get their arms around how to talk to clients that way, the growth side was really paid short shrift for many firms simply because they didn't have the capacity. Now, that wasn't all firms, Deneen, because a number of firms that were forward-thinking, growth-oriented said, oh my goodness, this is a time of disruption is a time to capture business. So my business changed from a long-term strategic transformation to a high-growth firm into short-term, get revenue in the door now. So I was involved with those more forward-thinking firms in how to drive revenue at the market level. But I'd say that most of your firms were very much absorbed in just getting, PPP out the door for their current clients, maybe doing a webinar here or there, but not necessarily, too much in terms of the front room. Now we have that under our belt. We have used these technology tools for infrastructure and service delivery, and now there's a heightened awareness among firm leaders that, wait a minute, we can actually talk to clients and talk to prospects and actually use these tools to drive demand. And so this awareness has caused managing partners and others to really look at the tools that we already have, like social media tools, sales and marketing tools, and so forth, to drive demand. And so there's now a heightening awareness there. However, I will say that it's not quite here yet. One of the things that has really been put on the back burner is the technology-driven growth, innovation through services. Meanwhile, the Botkeepers of the world, you've been pedaling hard with AI and machine learning and RPA, and the firms have been distracted by the infrastructure side, as well as the, now heightening awareness of the immediacy of, golly, we have these sales and marketing tools, so now let's get our arms around digital growth.
Right.
But now it's time for them to, for firms to say, wait a minute, let's re-embrace technology-driven growth, and let's do something with it going forward.
So this is something that you and I have talked about that I think is so important. So I want you to you said what I heard you say and what I know you're talking about is what you call technology innovation of services. And so I'd like for you, because you break it down into three types, and the way you talk about those three types, I think really brings this to life so that firms can understand what you mean about technology innovation of services, which is where a lot of firms, I think, need to get to. So can you talk about the three types?
Sure. Yes. So there are two things that are a foundation of the principles of growth, and one is a three-legged stool, which we can come back to later if we have time. And the three legs of the stool, in order to have the seat, which is growth, to really grow something, you have to have your arms around marketing, sales, and innovation, aka product management. And this is new product development, right? Because if you don't have new shiny stuff on the shelf, then you are relegated to be a compliance shop, and you comply with the standards, and then you deliver work. Mm-hmm. And there's not as much availability for differentiation there as there is in the technology-driven new service development world. Now, when you look at the innovation of services, technology-driven services, you have really three types. And this framework is one of the things that I discovered. I think that you can't invent anything because it's already here, but it was discovered by me. And that is, when you are looking at technology innovation in the market-facing side, not the infrastructure side with, CRM and billing systems, you have type 0, type 1, and type 2. And type 2 services, I'll start at the top, are where you want to aspire for growth, because type 2 services are technology-driven services where you drive revenue. So it's new services or the enhancement of current services with technology where you can drive new revenue. Think scorecards, think benchmarking, think KPIs, think that kind of thing. And so that's type 2. Now, type 1 is you embed some technology in order to drive efficiency and quality. Think AI in the audit. Think RPA within your client accounting services. And that is that you're driving efficiency, driving quality, and therefore you can be more competitive with it. Type 0 is the use of technologies which are in the services themselves, that are in the usage within the firm itself. Right. And that is, think data analytics on your own firm's data, for example. Right. And as a result of that, if you get confused about this and you don't know what your value proposition is, value proposition on a 0 is better decision making within the firm. Yeah. Value prop in number 1 is efficiency and quality, but value prop number 2 is where growth comes from, and that's revenue growth. You'll get them all in a pot, and then you'll be doing a bunch of stuff, and then you'll say, well, my firm's not growing. I thought it was supposed to. It's like, but you didn't do type 2s. You're down here at type 0 or type 1 only, and you stopped there and you didn't go to type 2.
Yeah. Well, and so I've been reading some of the blogs on your website because I'm fascinated by this concept. And one of the things I just read last night was something you wrote entitled "When Technology Meets Service Lines." And the biggest, I think you're targeting within firms the CIO. That's the biggest champion that you're targeting at the firm to take the firm to this next step into that 2.0. But I like the way you talk about it. Typically the CIO is the Chief Information Officer, which is the tech person. But now we're seeing the Chief Innovative Officer. So I'd love for you to dig into that a bit.
I will. So we have heretofore, since we've been in the back room with technology for years and years, and really have just come out of the back room into the front room with the development of the cloud and cloud services and the capability that the cloud gave us. And by the way, CAS practices were the first ones, to the new era, so to speak, the front room. But the CIO has typically been the guy in the back room who has, you walk down the hall and you pass his office. He's got wires and monitors and mice and all kinds of stuff. And it's akin to the plumbing and the electricity, which is really important as a foundational, base. But now we're asking either that person or bring in another person from the outside as the chief innovation officer. And these people are front room people. They're the people that are driving with the service line and industry leaders and under the purview of the managing partner, new services and the enhancement of current services out in the market. And so they're two different kinds of animals. They sometimes can be housed in the same person, but that is what the innovation officer is. They are an expert at product management, right? And they are product management is new product development, aka innovation. It goes by three names, but basically, if you break that function down, it has a technical element to it, which is market facing, and it has a business use case element, which is business model element, which is your service line or industry leader, the people who are actually on the ground with clients and in the market, who are tasked with understanding what the needs are of the user. And so together, that creates a very strong product management function. And so that is what the chief innovation officer is and does.
Yeah, I noticed, Gail, I'll say maybe 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, that firms were starting to have that title. And the traditional firm you don't think is necessarily being innovative, but the progressive firms were pulling in a CIO, a chief innovation officer, and really tasking them with some major changes for the firm. And so I started working with those folks. When I would find them at a firm, I'd start working with those firms. I'm like, these are the change agents. These are the people that are vetting out technology. These are the people that are thinking about new way of doing things for the profitability and the growth. And as I started finding those people and supporting those people, because I was helping firms move to the cloud, I was helping firms change, and those champions of that change, I would really tightly work with, and I found them struggle. And they really struggle. Like the managing partner would give them marching orders. Then they would find the change and find the technology. They'd do their research. Then they'd bring it to the partners in charge, and they got stuck. And so I'm sure you're seeing that too. So how are you pushing firms? How are you working to push past that, that place where they get stuck? Because I think the partners are on board, but they're not ready, or to walk us through that.
Yeah, I will tell you that the dilemma here that you're describing is that these industry and service line leaders are different. First of all, you need to have them, because if you're just working with a book of business partner, that's an individual contribution sport, right? It is not a business unit leadership role. And so you need to have a business unit leadership role and person in that role for the chief innovation officer to work with. Then that whole body of knowledge around product management is one where it's the antithesis of compliance work. So you have to take these industry and service line leaders, and they have a compliance mindset, which is calendar driven and responsive, and change their thinking into being an initiator, and to be a explorer, and and when you initiate and explore, that's when you get that mindset change in the leaders that say, wait a minute, I have to go and initiate in the market. I have to go and explore in the market what the use cases could be for these 6 technology enablers, find the right one, have the chief information officer helping me with that, vetting out the platforms like Botkeeper that could be the technical solution, and working together. And so a lot of the work that I do has to do with teaching these business unit leaders how to change their mindset, so that once that's changed, then they can open up to, okay, now what does product management mean? What are the principles involved? What's an early adopter? Why do we need them? What is a use case? How do we figure out if it's a type 2, 1, or 0, and all the things that are necessary in that body of knowledge to really embrace it and not be fearful of it or reject it.
Yep.
So that's the challenge for firms.
Yeah. And truthfully, I've spent my career the last 12 years focusing on evolving the CAS practice. And I've seen more success when firms bring in somebody from the outside to focus on building this new revenue source in a new way with new people, new technology, and a lot of times it was new clients, leaving sort of the traditional, tax, closing the books on that side and building something new. And I found that they're more successful because they were separated from that traditional, this is my book of business, and I'm going to, it's been my job here to bring in my book of business and manage my book of clients. And so how have you really helped firms with that shift of, what do you call it, one firm mentality, right? It's good for the firm to grow and advise. Yeah.
Got it. It starts with an awareness of how we have grown our firms in the past and how we need to grow them in the future, and the foundational framework of it. Our framework in the past to grow a firm has been individual contribution book of business partners who were very tactical through referral sources and were generalists. Hang out our shingle, come one, come all.
Right. Yep.
Transforming a firm over into leader-driven, team-based leaders, meaning industry leaders, service line leaders, responsible for the strategic direction and financial health of the entire business unit, regardless of how many partners are delivering work within that business unit, right? So strategic, so leader-driven, strategic, which is driving at the market level through distribution channels, not at the individual tactical level through referral sources. And then there's a big difference between the two. And then not a specialist, not generalist. So specializing in real estate, specializing in not-for-profit, specializing in HUD audits, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And so that transformation is one that firms are making. Most of them have one foot in the old world, one foot in the new world. But once they get over here and they assign leaders to each chunk of the revenue of the firm, I call it segment leaders, the chunk which is audit, the chunk which is CAS, the chunk which is real estate, then what happens is, and you give them marching orders, which is CAS leader, you're no longer a book of business. You could be a book of business person, but you take off your book of business hat and you put on your CAS leader hat, and you are responsible as the president of the CAS business unit. And it's like a president of a company versus the salesperson or the delivery person in a company. It's the president. And you give them the marching orders. You're responsible for the strategic direction and financial health. That strategic direction means, where are we going? And are we going to use RPA? Are we going to use Botkeeper? Are we going to be on QuickBooks desktop forever? Right. Are we going to be writing checks?
This is great. This is great. So I want to circle back onto something that you mentioned, because I wanted you to share your thinking. You said 6 enablers. So can you outline those 6? And then I want to talk about how you're working with those 6 in firms.
Okay, so a few years ago, I actually started a minute of history here. About 6 or 7 years ago, I started working with CAS practices in the cloud. And I, like everybody else, knew that the cloud was incrementally something really cool, giving us more capability. I way underestimated the significance of it. The cloud has been the most significant thing that's happened to technology in our profession in years. And the reason is this: unlimited capacity, unlimited data capacity, unlimited
data, having the data real time. That's
the data. Yeah. Well, that's only one of the 3, because you can have the data, but if you don't have processing capability, you can't do anything with it. Unlimited processing capability in the cloud, because now your servers are in the sky, and unlimited communications capability. So now you can communicate all over the world and so forth. And what happened is the cloud enabled and opened up this capability. And so now what happened is that I started working with these firms in CAS, but then what happened is it opened up all these 6 technology enablers. And I had to figure out what sequence are they most likely to be commercialized successfully, and put them in an order. And I worked with Alan Anderson on this, who some of you might know. But at any rate, Alan and I sat down, and what we came up with was this framework. The first thing out the door, data analytics. The second thing out the door, AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning. Then RPA came on the scene big time. It came from nowhere. My slides of 3 or 4 years ago, I didn't even have RPA on it, right? And so RPA, and now we have those 3. We also add to that cybersecurity, which is lagging behind those for various reasons. Then we have continuous audit and blockchain. So those are the 6, and that's the order generally that they're evolving in. Now, I'm working in all 6 of them, but blockchain, for example, is only touching some firms, not all, whereas data analytics is touching all firms. All firms are grappling with that. So yeah, those are the 6 technologies, and the way that I have been working with firms is I started a big shopping trip 6 years ago. You see, when I started my practice, which was 20 years ago, I had all this technology experience and I couldn't use it because I was a growth consultant to CPA firms, and technology was in the back room. I mean, there was no connect. Right. And then when this happened, it's like, hooray, I could take all my tech experience, embed it back in. So I started on a shopping trip, shopping for vendors, providers, consultants of all these 6 technologies, so that I would be prepared to help my clients and lead them and drive them. So now with my methodology of helping firms transform and working with industry and service line leaders, part of the required curriculum in my coaching is they have to go and do the work necessary to come back and eventually successfully commercialize these use cases. And so we go way back to, they have to start with researching the 6 technologies within their particular segment and all the way through. And so this is how I happened upon Botkeeper, that I was looking for various vendors who provided various things, and Botkeeper was way early to the party. I mean, way early with AI, machine learning, and RPA.
Right. We touched 3 of the 6, yeah.
Oh yeah, and you guys, and I saw this, and you were grabbing the market, and I'm like, so I have early clients that were using Botkeeper, and just the whole concept itself, so exciting. So as a result, I'm not a technologist. I didn't come up through the technical side, right? So I know that whenever I'm in a firm, I've got to find the chief innovation officer. Either they're in the firm or they got to go find a consultant. And I know pretty much all of them out here that could be their outsourced chief innovation officer.
Oh,
and
wow.
So there are about a dozen of them out here that come and can do that. And so I'll say, okay, call so-and-so. He's the one we need for this. I remember recently we were in the construction space with one of the technologies, and I said, go find somebody who can, we found somebody who could do this through our research, the segment leader, construction segment leader did, but we didn't know if it was a really good technology or not. So we brought in this chief innovation officer, consultant type guy, and said, go vet that technology out and come back and tell us what you think. And then once he gave it the good housekeeping seal of approval, it was good with me. The worst thing is for us to be wandering around as non-technical people,
right.
and, and not know what we're talking about. So.
I mean, that's why firms work with experts like you, because then you've worked with so many firms in this space. You're seeing the common denominator, even though I love that you're verticalizing, because I saw firms do that a couple of years ago on the audit side and on the tax side, and just now I'm starting to see them do that in the client accounting side to verticalize, right? And what you're saying is, as you're working with each president, right, having a vertical focus, their technology, their tech stack, you know, I don't love that term. I think that's an old
Yeah.
term. Their
Uh-huh.
technology should be different for each vertical. And then you're even
Absolutely.
pull in experts in that space, outsource that piece of it to find the right technology in that space. And I agree. I think that's where they look to you to help because they're so afraid of making the wrong decision or picking the wrong technology or making a mistake. And honestly, kind of gone are those days where it has to be perfect. If you want to innovate, you have to try, but at least they have
Yep.
experts like you that can bring in experts that can have a safer try. I'm watching the
Well,
time. I did want
yeah.
to respond, but I just wanted to check. So we've got 3 more minutes, and you know, I could talk to
Hmm.
you about this forever. Is there any questions? If not, then I'll let you complete that thought. But Jella, is there any questions in the last 3 minutes that anybody has while we have Gail's attention and expertise?
Currently, there are no questions, but if you'd like to put one into the chat box, please feel free to do so.
Okay, so I cut you off, Gail. Was there something you wanted to respond on that thought?
Yeah, let me put a nice little bow around that. Yeah, when a industry or service line leader knows how to do it, then what happens is they know how to go out into the market and evaluate to determine use cases to inform which of the 6 technologies are relevant. They also are familiar with, through a chief innovation officer input, how what technologies might fulfill. And so it's a matter of drawing on resources of the Gale Crosleys of the world on the market facing side and how to look in the market and what to look for in each of the markets, and then how to work with a chief innovation officer type person that can vet out the technologies. And when you do that, you're not stabbing in the dark anymore. You feel
Right.
very confident because you're listening to the market and what the
Right.
market is telling you, and you're listening to the technologist and what the technologist is telling you. And that's when you get great comfort that of all the 6 technologies and all the 6 to 12 industries you could be working in, these are the ones that have the best market conditions, and these are the technologies that fit it. And when you do that, it makes beautiful, beautiful music. It really does.
That's a great summary. And I did want to go back to something we mentioned earlier because I like this. You talk about and you really coach firms on what you call the 3-legged stool. And at the seat is growth, right? Because growth strategy is
Uh-huh.
really core. But on with the last minute, can you talk about, because we have been interweaving all of it this whole conversation, but what is your 3-legged stool?
Okay. So the 3-legged stool is the seed is growth. You have the discipline of marketing, which is capturing markets, a market at a time. It's a macro discipline. You have the discipline of the functional discipline of sales, which is a micro discipline of developing and closing opportunities one at a time. And then you have the 3rd leg, which is innovation. And when you're dealing at the very rudimentary level, you're down at the bottom of the legs. Like marketing could be a marcom, marketing communications. Let's do a brochure. Sales could be, sales are down. Let's make more calls. and new product development is called, standard vanilla ice cream. But as you move up toward the top of the stool, you get up to strategic growth at the seat, and these 3 things hook between, and you start noticing the connections between innovation and of services and the market and what it wants. And then you can, through early adopter programs, get your first sale. And so then this first sale can inform what you do in the market, and also that version 1.0 needs to be 2.0, and that informs innovation. And so this is where you're working strategically among the 3, and that's how you get up to strategic growth.
And what I like about you too is I've worked with you because I've worked with you now. You've got a couple of firms working with Botkeeper, and I like how you really dig in to make sure that the technology is really helping. But because you're pushing firms to be responsive to, when you say market, I think clients. What are the clients looking for? And that's not the norm when I shouldn't say that, but firms kind of have done it the same way. And that's where I also feel like the shift is like, well, what are the clients asking for? And so you're saying, let's take this to the market, understand where the market is, what the clients are hungry for, and respond to them with these new services, these new brochures, these new sales discussions, these new technologies that allow the firm to make that shift into what the client is looking for. And I know we're running
Well,
late, but I'll let you end on that. So go ahead. What's your response to that?
yeah. Clients and markets are two different things.
Okay.
The market includes non-clients. And when you work at the market level, you're working at a much more strategic level. For example, early adopters often should not be your current clients.
Huh.
Surprise, surprise. So
Yeah.
yes, when you're working at the market level, that means that you are busting out of your framework of, I'm working with clients and I'm only going to see what my clients want. And you're stepping back and saying, wait a minute, let me look at the market, because your clients can be in this little corner of the pond and not reflective at all of where the opportunity is.
Okay.
The opportunity is way over here. You're working with doctors and it's dentists and the dentists are in the bigger market.
We need to do another On the Edge with Gale to talk about marketing clients, because I'm always learning
definitely.
from you. I thank you so much. Great session. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, audience. Thank you.
Bye-bye.